guys, welcome back to Look Up or Superman in Review. My name is Kyle. Thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. Go check out the other content. But we did Superman 1 through 4, the Christopher Reeve quadrilogy there. We're here for Superman Returns, guys, and then we're going to be doing Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, which is like kind of a stretch, not really a Superman movie, but enough of a Superman movie that I feel like I wanted to include it. And so this is my first time watching Superman Returns. It was my first time watching the Christopher Reeve movies. I've seen Man of Steel once and Batman vs. Superman once in theater, so it's been almost a decade, over a decade for Man of Steel, and almost a decade at the time of this recording since I've seen those. So basically new watches, guys. But if you haven't seen the series before, what I'm going to do, guys, is give my thoughts on the film. I'm going to give a score out of 10, a favorite character, and we're going to rank this bad boy against the first 4 movies. So, guys, appreciate you. Let's fly. This movie is so uninspiring, and I think that's even worse than just being a downright bad movie. What are we doing with this emo-ass Superman, dude? Get this Superman out of my face. First of all, his suit is more like evil Superman, right? The dark Superman suit. And it's like you have the Christopher Reeve's iconic, probably the best suit ever, pop, the color pop, like everything looks amazing. This feels like a CW Superman. This feels like the equivalent of a Disney Plus show. I've never seen Smallville. I know it did like 10 seasons, and I think people love Smallville for what it is, but I've heard that like most of it is trash. But the quality is lower. This feels like I was just watching like a 2-hour and 35-minute CW show, or like an episode of Smallville, where like the suit didn't look great. It was too dark. Brandon Routh, I thought, just was not a good fit for this role. He didn't have the charisma of Clark. He didn't have the aura of Superman. Like, I feel like we missed on both of those. Lois Lane as Kate Bosworth was just kind of okay. Like, she wasn't great. And then we have James Marsden, my boy, for some reason in this film. And he, like, does he not know his kid is Superman's kid? Like, that's kind of a reveal. Except they reveal it by him throwing a piano to kind of save them in Lex Luthor's ship. But then later on, when they're trying to take off in the seaplane, when Superman's, like, bleeding out, dude, they are like, I can't get up. And they go off the waterfall. And I'm like, okay, this is when James Marsden's going to find out that his kid is Superman's kid, because like his kid's going to go under the plane and he's going to like save them. But no, they just get enough height. Like James Marsden, they're going into like a full dive and James Marsden just pulls up the plane, and I'm like, dude, this movie, the only thing it has going for it is the John Williams theme, right? So they took the theme and the constant references back to Marlon Brando's character, which kind of tie it to the Christopher Reeve movies, and they kind of try to do it justice, but it's just not good. Like, none of the elements that they put in there are good. We have that scene where that woman who lost the brakes, who's like working for Lex Luthor, she has sympathy for Superman because Superman saved her life, and she's like, oh, I thought we were just going to talk about cutting the brakes, not actually cut the brakes. And Lex Luthor's like, well, you know, he could tell when you're lying, and so he cut the brakes, and so Superman actually saves her life, but then she has like so much sympathy for him, and it's like, I don't know, she dumps the crystals out, and Lex Luthor builds like a kryptonite island, and then Superman just kind of lifts it up at the end and like throws it into space. Doesn't blow it up. You're like, okay, use your eye vision, right? Use your red laser eyes to blow it up in space, so there's not a huge fucking kryptonite island floating around in space in case, what if Superman needs to go to another planet or something, or maybe he's just going around fighting in space and he's like, oh shit, this is still out here, and like the kryptonite island wears him down, but he can't move with the kryptonite. He's stabbed by a kryptonite crystal, and then he's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna like tough it up and we'll be good. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I never felt like it was really a Superman movie. I feel, I know that sounds crazy, but there's a couple of scenes like he saves the Daily Planet globe, but then he just like puts it down on someone's car and crushes it. And I thought he was going to say, like, I'll get you a new one or whatever. But he didn't say that. He was, like, oddly quiet. Like, he was very quiet and weird. And I was just like, I don't know who chose Brandon Routh. He doesn't necessarily look like Superman. Like, I know he's got the hair and the lick and everything, but I just feel like it wasn't quite hitting. He felt more like Adam Scott. Like, I was waiting for someone to ask, like, Superman if the Bonita fish were big, dude. Like, I don't know. It just gave, like, the Adam Scott Step Brothers vibes, and it was just strange, and he was awkward with Lois, but I felt like there was, like, no chemistry. Like, when we had Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, dude, their chemistry was palpable as Clark and Lois, and their buddy-buddy, and they were, like, well, they won't they, as Clark and Lois, but then in Superman, she was like fixated, and Lois just like, oh yeah, I was in love with Superman, and then James Marsden's like, are you still in love with him? And he's like, don't lie, and she's like, no, but she is lying. So it's like your marriage is based on a lie, and it's just strange because like we find out, I guess, that they had sex because that's Superman's kid, and it's like you just kept this from him, I guess, and there's just a lot of elements in this movie. Like Superman has one scene with like his mom or his grandmother, or whoever the I'm guessing the woman who raised him, because he lands in like a meteorite, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna have to like reboot. We're like rebooting this again, right? This is when he lands to Earth, but this is just like, is it him fighting something or ending? And she's like, oh, you're back, and they're like, oh, you've been gone or whatever. And I don't know if it's ever established how long he was gone. Why did he go away? It's weird. Was he just fighting stuff out there? It's like for a movie that's 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 35 minutes, they don't do a very good job of like setting up a lot of lore or setting up a lot of backstory or explaining things. Like there's a lot of elements in this movie that are just not very fleshed out. And I thought Kevin Spacey, I mean, Kevin Spacey now, revisionist history, is a piece of shit. So, like, it's hard for me to root for him in any role. But you can still have a great acting performance separated from being a good human being. But I thought his Lex Luthor was just, like, kind of dull. And that's where I feel like this movie just fails, where everything is just kind of there. It's not really done well. It's just kind of eh. And this Superman also kind of sucks as Superman. Like, he goes up to space so he can listen for stuff, but then somehow he pinpoints like the sirens or something. But then clearly, like other people are dying. It reminds me of the Spider-Man thing, where it's like you can't save everyone, and that's kind of the superhero like conundrum there. But I thought some things were cool, but then like the plane thing, where like I don't know what was going on, but there was like like a commercial plane with assuming press all over where Lois is, and then there's like a shuttle on top of that, and they're trying to like launch this shuttle from this plane or something, and I was like, what? What? When has this ever happened? And then they're like, oh well, let's try the remote engaging locks. Oh, that's not working. Let's try this. Oh, that's not working, because like the giant EMP goes off when Lex like gets the crystal or whatever, and then it kind of throws everything off. But like you don't have manual emergency override stops or something like that. It felt weird to me that like everything failed. But when Superman comes in to save them, he like takes the shuttle off, right? Because the engine starts up and it's like burning the back of the plane and everything. And he takes it off and he kind of does like the Superman throw thing, and he's like, ah. Meanwhile, the commercial plane is spinning in a fiery wreck like down to Earth, and he like just doesn't notice for a while. And like these people are being flown around stuff. Like people would have definitely, I don't know if they would have died, but like talk about the most terrifying flight. Now they do have that line, which again is from the one of the Superman movies, the original ones, where he stops the subway or whatever, and he's like, I just want you to know that the flying is still the safest statistical place. And I was like, all right. So like there are a couple of scenes, like he says swell in this one, and they just look at him, and I felt like the Once Upon in Hollywood Leo gif where he's like at the TV, because it's like, okay, but they were kind of forcing it, like, hey, remember the theme? And he lands the plane after these people are going on like a hellish ride. He finally like puts it out. And I'm like, dude, the wings snap off and everything. And I'm like, this Superman kind of sucks. But the plane's coming down, and then like land it in like Yankee Stadium or something, or what we assume, what is the equivalent of Yankee Stadium, and that's cool. But like the plane was going full speed, and then he just kind of like takes the force. The force of that would probably like explode the cabin or something. I don't know anything about planes, guys, but it just felt like a little bit of a stretch. And I know this is a movie about Superman, and it's like obviously it's all unbelievable, but I just felt like that was a little strange. And I didn't feel like this Superman, Brandon Routh's Superman, had any like sympathy towards people. I was waiting for kind of like quippy, like nerdy, cool Superman, or like Riz worthy Superman, right? Like when Christopher Reeve was Superman, dude, he could pick up anyone. He had so much charisma, and like every time he was like talking to Lois, like you're like, oh, dude, that's Superman. When Brandon Routh was there, he was just like really quiet, and they almost gave him no lines, and it was weird. And he had like awkward facial expressions, and I was like, this is like an awkward teen Brandon Routh Superman almost. Like it was just strange to me. So I think a lot of this movie just didn't work for me, and so we'll get to the score in a bit, guys. But I think there's a lot of potential here. It's obviously the most modern one in 2006 film at the time of our reviews, at least. Well, as we go, it's the most modern film. And so, yeah, the flying looked pretty cool sometimes. And like when he's ripping through the water and his red laser eyes are going through, although the effect was kind of faint, I feel like I would have wanted like more red. Like that was okay, and it was cool how quick he was going. But I just felt like there was a lot of like meh around that, and so I think just nothing really works in this film, and I was just kind of bored with the whole thing, really. Okay, guys, my favorite character for this one, I guess it's Lois Lane. I mean, she's the only one that I didn't like despise, but I wasn't feeling Lois Lane. I wasn't like Margot Kidder's performance where I was like, oh man, I love Lois. She's a go-getter. She's a Pulitzer Prize winner. She just felt kind of like the romantic interest. And it was just weird having James Marsden's character in there too, because it's like he felt unnecessary. The child felt unnecessary. You feel like they should have saved that for the end or something, or like have him come in at the end. But the child was just like there a lot of the time, and I'm like, what is we doing here? And I think Lois was okay, but in the Superman movie, the Superman Returns movie, I wanted to be like, I love Superman. This is a new take. It's not Christopher Reeve. No one will ever be Christopher Reeve in Superman, but you can do something different. And they obviously had their own take on it, but I don't know why they went darker and just like uninspired, because Superman is supposed to like give you hope. And even him coming back, it would have been cool if there was like a universe threatening or world threatening event, and like Lex had this big plan, and it's like, oh no, where's Superman? And then he shows up and the theme kicks in, and it's like, oh dude, Superman's back to save the day. And instead it's just like Lex is just kind of like messing around with EMPs and crystals and stuff, and it's just weird. And then I'm like, I don't really care if his island goes away. And it just I just didn't like Clark Kent or Superman in this film. And that sucks because I really wanted to love Superman. And it just again shows you how strong Christopher Reeve's performance is and how iconic that was, because I really felt like it was missing. I was like, oh man, Christopher Reeve would go so hard in this Superman. But yeah, Lois Lane is okay. You know, she's the one I dislike the least, I guess, in this film. But I just wasn't feeling like, oh, that's Lois Lane. Like, oh, she's a great reporter. If he's doing something to get the job done, like it was like they told you how great she was, but then we never really saw her in action, and she was kind of just like a damsel in distress. So Lois Lane is my favorite character, but I didn't love her performance either way. As that brings us to the score, this is, I think, easily the worst one. This is the 6-1. Again, this is just very uninspired. Everything that's good in this movie is just from the original, with the theme and the Jor-El speeches from Marlon Brando. And I like how they have the crystal formation and his face is going on there. But, you know, despite better flying effects, some of it still looked bad, but just the plot was kind of all over the place. I didn't really care about Lex's plan. I didn't like Kevin Spacey's performance as Lex Luthor. I thought there were just a lot of awkward scenes, like when she goes in on the wig, the wigs on the boat, and then Lex Luthor's like, "Huh, Lois Lane," and then he says something. There were a lot of extra lines in here that I was like, that was really awkward and weird. So I just wasn't vibing with this movie. I didn't think it stood out visually. I thought you have a 2006 Superman movie. It's crazy that we got Batman Begins a year before this, and we got 2 years later, we would get The Dark Knight, dude, which is one of the best films of all time. And so it's just crazy that direction and budget and everything, like obviously Superman didn't have as big of a budget as Batman, but it's like, man, it's crazy that this film is 2006 and 2 years later we get Dark Knight, because this to me feels like a 1995 movie. And then if you see Dark Knight, it would be like an all-time classic. It stands the test of time. So obviously two different movies, two very different platforms in terms of quality, but the movie just lacks heart, it lacks inspiration, it lacks hope, and the theme is so good every time, but I didn't feel like the scenes backed up the theme. I was like, oh, the theme is so good. And a couple times Superman looked okay flying, but then they were like panning on Brandon Routh's face, and I'm like, you're not Superman, dude. You're just a guy in a Superman suit, if that makes sense to anyone. But again, very uninspired movie, very bland. Everything that was good was kind of taken from the original. So I just wasn't really feeling this movie, and I think it's just not a good movie overall. And for 2.5 hours, I was pretty bored pretty much the whole time. Guys, that brings us to the rankings. This one is going to go at the bottom at number 5. Again, even though we had like the wacky Superman 3 and Superman 4 was kind of goofy too, at least those movies knew what they were going for. This just feels like make modern Superman movie. And so that's why it goes at the bottom, guys. The color palette sucks. The characters kind of suck. The motivations suck. The only thing that's really good is the theme. The flying is a little bit better. I mean, it looks more modern, but it's still like, okay, the plane scene is cool. But it's also like Superman is being really sloppy. And it's like, I don't need a perfect Superman all the time. I kind of like him like fumbling around. But expand on that. Like, give me more time with his mother. We got literally one scene with his mom. We got freaking Kumar from Harold and Kumar in this movie, and I don't think he has a single line, but he's just like one of the henchmen. And why are the henchmen beating up Superman? Don't you think Lex Luthor would be the one to beat up Superman when he's depowered? Like, there's just things in here that just don't make sense. And it's like, even the kid, the Superman kid at the end, they're like, he's like, you're gonna be great, and then like it's so obvious that Lois is in love with Superman, but then they're just having their life, and it's like that conundrum, dude, where it's like, oh, you're in love with Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's got to save everyone, and so you can't be with Spider-Man. But it's just always weird to me that like she's like, oh, I moved on, and she's like, the world doesn't need Superman, and then she's like, oh, I forgot how warm you are, and it's like I didn't get any chemistry from them, and so yeah, uninspired, boring, bland, not even colorful really. That's why it's going to go at the bottom of the list. Okay, guys, that is another episode of Look Up, our Superman review. So we are done with kind of, I'd say, the older or the meh movies. Even though I think there's now a kind of a special place in my heart for definitely the first two Superman movies with Christopher Reeve. Even though those aren't the greatest films, they are certainly Superman movies, if that makes sense. Like Christopher Reeve, undefeated, iconic. But now, guys, we're going to Man of Steel, and I'm very excited for that one. I'm not expecting the greatest film, but I'm expecting Henry Cavill to crush it. I'm expecting awesome flying, and I'm expecting to just get a new appreciation after watching these other Superman movies. So we have two more left before the new one, guys. Man of Steel and then Batman v Superman, which is probably going to be a mess, but Man of Steel at least should be like really Superman Returns. What Superman Returns should have been, like the definitive Superman movie. So super excited for that, but we'll be back, guys, for another episode of Look Up. I appreciate you checking out Project Potter. Go check out the other content. Let me know what you think of this movie. Is it as much of a mess as I think it is? Did you guys like it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know. Curious to hear your thoughts. But guys, until next time, look up.